Why every time you try to help a narcissist, you end up feeling more drained, more lost, and more disconnected from yourself? You keep telling yourself, maybe they'll change if I love them enough. But deep down, something feels wrong, like you're fighting a battle your soul was never meant to fight. What if I told you the biggest mistake you're making isn't loving too much? It's trying to heal what God never sent you to fix. Some people come from heaven to teach you love. Others are sent by darkness to test your strength. In this video, I'll reveal the one mistake that keeps chosen ones stuck in pain, repeating the same spiritual cycle with narcissists again and again. And by the end, you'll see exactly how to break free, not just emotionally, but spiritually. So stay till the end, because this might be the message your spirit has been waiting for. And if you've ever felt like your kindness was used against you, drop a "I'm awake now" in the comments. Let's remind the darkness that the chosen ones are finally waking up. Don't forget to subscribe. Your healing journey starts right here.
You think showing love will change them, but that's exactly how they keep control. That's the spiritual trap most empathic and kind-hearted people fall into. You see, when you're someone who naturally loves deeply, you believe love has the power to heal everything. You believe that if you just stay patient, if you just forgive again, maybe this time they'll realize how much you care and finally change. But narcissists don't see your love as a gift. They see it as an opportunity. They study your heart the way a hunter studies prey, learning what to say, how to act, and when to pretend they care just enough to pull you back in. Every tear you shed, every time you forgive too soon, feeds their ego. They start to believe they have power over your emotions, and that's when the real manipulation begins. What makes this so dangerous is how spiritual it feels at first. You think God is testing your patience. You think this person was sent into your life to teach you unconditional love. But the truth is, not every battle is meant to be fought in love. Some are meant to be escaped in wisdom. The devil is clever. He doesn't always come dressed in darkness. Sometimes he comes wearing charm, softness, even tears. He comes through people who claim they need your help, but what they really need is your energy. And because you're pure-hearted, you confuse their chaos for pain, their manipulation for brokenness. You try to heal them, not realizing that every moment you spend trying to fix what's unfixable is pulling you further away from your peace, your purpose, and your connection to God. The narcissist knows exactly what they're doing. They test your limits, then cry for forgiveness. They wound you, then convince you it's your fault. It's a cycle of guilt and hope, a spiritual loop designed to keep your light dimmed. They need you to believe that your love is what keeps them alive, because as long as you believe that, you'll never leave. But the truth is, you are the light they fear most. And when light shines too bright, darkness starts to panic. That's why they confuse you, gaslight you, and make you question your reality, because clarity would expose them. The devil disguises manipulation as a second chance. He whispers that this time will be different, that walking away makes you heartless, that forgiveness means holiness. But real holiness isn't about allowing abuse. It's about discernment. God didn't create you to be a doormat. He created you to be a light bearer. And light doesn't stay where it's constantly attacked. It moves. It protects itself. It shines from a distance. So if you've been trapped in this cycle, know this: your love was never the mistake. The mistake was thinking that your love could heal someone who was sent to test, not transform. This isn't weakness, it's awakening. The moment you see the trap for what it is, the chains start to fall and your spirit begins to rise again. That uneasy feeling deep inside you, that quiet discomfort you can't explain, isn't confusion. It's not anxiety. It's not overthinking. It's God's silent warning. When something feels off, when your spirit feels restless around someone, that's not just emotion, that's revelation. It's your divine intuition trying to speak louder than your attachment. You see, when you're close to God, He doesn't always send a loud thunderstorm to get your attention. Sometimes He simply disturbs your peace, not to punish you, but to protect you. That ache in your chest, that sense of heaviness after talking to them, that sudden loss of joy, it's heaven's way of saying, "My child, this person is not who you think they are." But here's the part that keeps so many chosen ones trapped. You mistake that warning for a call to pray harder, to love stronger, to give them another chance. You keep thinking maybe God wants you to help them heal, when in reality, He's asking you to let go. You keep asking, "Lord, change their heart," while God is whispering, "I'm trying to change your direction." Because sometimes His protection looks like separation. You don't realize it yet, but the very person you're fighting for might be the one blocking your blessings. God doesn't want you to carry what He's already asked you to release. That unease is the Holy Spirit tugging on your soul, reminding you that peace doesn't coexist with confusion. When someone constantly drains you, belittles you, or makes you question your worth, that's not love. That's spiritual warfare. And the longer you stay, the more your light dims under their shadow. God will never send you into a connection that costs your clarity. If you're losing yourself just to keep someone else, that's not a divine connection. That's a divine warning. When you ignore those whispers, life gets louder. The red flags become heartbreaks. The subtle discomfort becomes deep pain. But it's never because God abandoned you. It's because He gave you signs that you didn't want to see. He warned you through silence, through delay, through disconnection. And now, He's saying again, walk away before this storm destroys your peace. You are not walking away because you stopped caring. You're walking away because your spirit finally understands the assignment. You were never meant to save them. You were meant to survive them. Every time you choose peace over chaos, you're obeying that silent voice that tried to protect you from the start. That's not weakness. That's divine strength. The moment you listen to that unease, instead of ignoring it, everything begins to shift. The air feels lighter, your thoughts get clearer, and your connection to God grows stronger. Because peace isn't just a feeling, it's confirmation that you're finally where God wanted you to be all along. You're not their healer, you're their supply. That's the painful truth most people don't want to face. When you meet a narcissist, they quickly sense your light, your kindness, your empathy, your ability to love unconditionally. To them, you're not a partner or a friend, you're a source of energy. They study you quietly, learning what makes you care, what makes you stay, and what makes you feel responsible for other people's pain. And before you realize it, you've taken on a role you were never meant to play, the healer of someone who doesn't want to be healed. They come into your life appearing broken, misunderstood, or just hurt from the past. You see their pain and think, maybe my love can fix this. You give more, you forgive more, you pray harder, thinking your compassion will lead to their transformation. But it never does, because they don't want healing. They want attention. Healing requires accountability, humility, and honesty, and those are things the narcissist runs from. What they truly crave is validation. They feed off your energy, your reactions, your attempts to prove your loyalty. Every time you chase their approval, you confirm their power. Every time you try to explain yourself, you give them more control. The illusion of healing keeps you trapped, They might mimic growth for a while. They'll start speaking the right words, quoting spiritual ideas, pretending to change. But if you watch closely, it's all surface level. There's no genuine repentance, no shift in behavior, just temporary peace before the cycle starts again. And when you finally decide to pull away, when you stop feeding them your emotional energy, that's when their mask begins to crack. The charm fades, the words lose power, and what's left is the emptiness they've been hiding all along. That's the part they fear the most, being exposed without your light to hide behind.
When light meets darkness, something powerful happens. Not a battle of equals, but a revelation of truth. The light doesn't fight to prove itself, it simply shines. And in doing so, it exposes what was hidden all along. That's what happens when a chosen one encounters a narcissist. You were born with a divine light, a heart that feels deeply, forgives easily, and sees potential even in brokenness. But that same purity is what draws darkness toward you. The narcissist senses that you are not like others. Your spirit carries healing energy. To them, you are both fascinating and threatening. They don't seek your love for connection, they seek it for consumption. Your empathy becomes a weapon in their hands. You try to understand their pain, their trauma, their reasons for being cruel. You think if you can just love them enough, they'll change. But you're not dealing with ordinary brokenness. You're dealing with spiritual corruption. Narcissists don't want healing. They want control. They thrive on confusion, on making you doubt yourself, on dimming your light little by little until you forget who you are. And that's where the real war begins, not between you and them, but between your purpose and their darkness. As a chosen one, you were sent into this world to bring light where there is pain, to help others rise. But you were never meant to fix evil. That's not your assignment. Evil doesn't need comfort, it needs exposure. Every time you choose peace instead of reaction, silence instead of arguing, distance instead of begging, your light expands. You disarm them not through words, but through energy. Because light doesn't argue with the dark, it simply reveals it. And that revelation terrifies those who hide behind masks. The narcissist's biggest fear is exposure. They operate best in shadows, in secrecy, manipulation, and emotional confusion. But when your light touches them, the illusion breaks. Their charm loses its shine, their lies lose their power, and their fake love begins to crumble. You begin to see through them, and that's when they turn vicious. They'll accuse you of being cold, ungrateful, even crazy, anything to make you doubt your discernment. But don't. That's just the darkness fighting for survival. You see, every chosen one must go through this test, learning that not everyone deserves access to their light. It's not selfish to protect your energy, it's sacred wisdom. When you finally stop pouring into emptiness, your glow returns stronger than ever. You'll notice peace surrounding you again, clarity returning, and your connection with God growing deeper. That's when you realize something profound. The light never needed to fight. It only needed to understand its own power. Darkness can imitate many things, but it can never imitate divine light. And the moment you stand in that truth, the war is over. Because darkness has no power in a room where you finally remember who you are.
The narcissist was never sent to love you. They were sent to drain you. Their charm was the bait, their chaos the trap. It's hard to accept that, especially when you remember how real it all felt in the beginning. They entered your life like a blessing, attentive, affectionate, perfectly in tune with your soul. They said the right words, mirrored your values, and made you believe this connection was divinely orchestrated. You thanked God for sending them, not realizing the devil can disguise his assignments in light too. And sometimes God allows that deception, not to hurt you, but to teach you, to open your eyes, to help you see the difference between divine love and spiritual manipulation. At first, it feels magical, as if they were your answered prayer. But that's how the enemy works. He doesn't come with horns and fire. He comes wrapped in everything you've ever wanted. The narcissist studies your desires and reflects them back at you. They make you feel seen, chosen, understood. But it's all a setup. Once you're emotionally invested, once you've handed them your trust, they begin to shift. Their warmth turns cold. Their words become confusing. Their affection becomes conditional. Suddenly you're trying to earn back the love that was freely given at first, and that's exactly where they want you. Their goal isn't love, it's depletion. They drain your confidence, your joy, your energy, until you start questioning your worth. They want to break your spirit so they can feed off your attempts to fix what they destroyed. And while you're busy trying to understand what went wrong, they're quietly feeding on the chaos they created. That's how the devil works through people, by using emotional confusion to separate you from your peace, from your intuition, and ultimately from God. But here's the hidden truth. God saw it coming. He allowed it not as punishment, but as preparation. You were meant to learn discernment, the ability to see beyond appearances. Every tear you cried, every sleepless night you endured, became training for your spirit. Because after encountering a narcissist, you'll never mistake imitation for intimacy again. You'll recognize energy before words, truth before charm, peace before promises. You see, God doesn't just bless you with love, He also blesses you with awareness. And sometimes, the only way to gain that awareness is through deception. You had to see the devil's disguise up close to understand that not everyone who calls you mine is sent by the divine. Once you wake up to that, everything changes. You stop chasing illusions. You stop rescuing people who enjoy their darkness. And you start guarding your light like the sacred gift it is, because the next time the devil sends a distraction, you won't fall for the smile. You'll feel the shift in your spirit. That's discernment. That's strength. That's how God turns every trap meant to destroy you into the wisdom that protects you forever.
The real test of the chosen one doesn't come when everything is peaceful. It comes when you're forced to face people who wear both light and darkness inside them. It comes when love feels like a war and forgiveness feels like surrender. This battle isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. Can you tell the difference between someone who's lost and someone who's sent to destroy you? Can you look past the surface, past the tears and apologies, and discern whether you're dealing with a broken human or a demonic assignment? That is where the chosen one's strength is truly revealed, not in how loud you fight, but in how wisely you walk away. At first, it doesn't feel like a test. It feels like heartbreak. You meet someone who seems to mirror your soul. They say they've been through the same pain, that they understand your spirit. They draw you in with familiarity. It feels divine, even destined. But slowly things begin to change. The warmth turns cold, the words turn sharp, and the connection that once brought peace now drains your energy. You try to love harder, pray stronger, and hold on tighter, thinking that maybe it's just a phase. But what you don't realize is that you've entered a spiritual battlefield disguised as a relationship. The chosen ones are born with deep empathy. It's both their gift and their greatest challenge. You want to believe everyone can be healed. You want to believe love can change even the darkest heart. And while that compassion comes from God, it can also blind you to the truth. Not everyone wants to be saved. Some people enjoy their darkness. Some people feed off your light. They aren't in your life to grow. They're in your life to stop you from growing. And until you recognize that, you'll keep pouring from a well that never refills. Recognition is the lesson hidden inside every painful encounter. God doesn't send these experiences to destroy you. He sends them to refine you. The chosen one's test is to learn discernment, to look beyond emotion and see intention. A lost soul will hurt you, but feel remorse. They'll try to change, even if they stumble. But a demonic assignment? They'll study your weakness, exploit your love, and take pleasure in your confusion. Their mission is to break your spirit, to make you doubt your worth, to dim your divine glow. And if you're not grounded, you'll mistake their manipulation for destiny. That's why God allows these encounters, not as punishment, but as preparation. You cannot step into divine purpose without spiritual awareness. You cannot carry light if you don't understand what darkness looks like when it smiles. The narcissist, the deceiver, the energy drainer, they are spiritual tests, not life partners. They appear to teach you how to guard your peace, how to trust your intuition, and how to choose wisdom over emotion. And when you finally see through them, when you no longer react to their chaos, that's when you pass the test. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The chosen one's victory doesn't come from proving a point or seeking revenge. It comes from silence, from clarity, from peace. You learn that revenge is for the ego, but release is for the soul. You realize that you don't need to explain yourself to people who thrive on misunderstanding you. You stop chasing closure from those who benefit from your confusion. You let go, not because they deserve peace, but because you do. And that's when the real power returns, when you can wish them well without wishing them back. This is the part where the transformation happens. The moment you detach emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, you rise above the cycle. You start to see how every manipulation was a mirror showing you where you still needed healing. Every betrayal taught you boundaries. Every disappointment reminded you of your worth. The very people who tried to destroy your light were the ones God used to polish it. They thought they were breaking you, but they were only breaking what was weak, the parts of you that depended on validation, that feared rejection, and confused attention for love. The chosen one learns that divine love doesn't demand suffering. It doesn't trap you in confusion or guilt. It brings peace, not chaos. And once you experience that peace again, once you feel the stillness that follows walking away, you understand that the battle was never between you and them. It was between your calling and their chaos. The enemy wasn't after your heart, he was after your purpose. He used relationships, emotions, and illusions to distract you from your path. But what he didn't realize is that every time you were knocked down, your faith grew stronger. Every time you were betrayed, your spirit became sharper. And every time you chose peace over reaction, heaven applauded your restraint. That's what separates the chosen one from the rest. You don't fight fire with fire. You let God handle the justice. You don't return hate with hate. You rise in silence. You don't beg to be understood. You let your peace speak louder than your pain. That's divine maturity. That's spiritual elevation. Because at some point, you stop seeing people as villains and start seeing them as teachers. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start saying, what did this awaken in me? So when you walk away, do it with grace. Don't carry bitterness, carry wisdom. Don't look back with anger, look forward with clarity. You're not the same person who once begged to be seen. Now, you see everything clearly. You've learned that not everyone who comes into your life is meant to stay. Some come to test your patience, others to test your discernment, and a few to test your faith. But every test has a purpose. Every battle has meaning. The real test of the chosen one isn't to destroy darkness, it's to recognize it without letting it destroy your light. It's to stand tall in love while knowing when love is no longer divine. It's to understand that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's sacred. Because when you walk away with wisdom instead of hate, you prove that the darkness failed. It couldn't turn your heart bitter. You passed the test not by fighting, but by evolving. You didn't lose anything, you gained spiritual vision. And that vision will guide you for the rest of your life. Because once a chosen one learns to recognize what's not from God, no deception can ever fool them again.
Sometimes God's protection doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes through distance. You might not understand it at first. You'll ask, why did they change? Why did everything fall apart just when I thought I could help them? But that's the thing. You were never meant to save them. You were meant to see them. God's lesson in detachment isn't about bitterness or punishment. It's about spiritual preservation. When you're chosen, your heart is naturally open, compassionate, and willing to carry the pain of others. But some souls are not meant to be carried. They're meant to be released. Because the moment you hold on to what God is trying to pull you away from, you start drowning in waters that were never meant to be yours. It's painful, isn't it? Watching someone you love self-destruct, lie, manipulate, and still hoping your love could spark their healing? But that's the trap. You confuse your mission with their potential. You see who they could be if they surrendered, but God sees who they truly are right now. And sometimes that truth is dark, twisted, and resistant to light. You can pour out every ounce of your soul, pray for them, forgive them endlessly. But if their heart belongs to darkness, your prayers won't transform them. They'll only exhaust you. God doesn't ask you to play savior. That's His role. He asks you to trust His timing, even when it means walking away from someone you deeply wanted to save. There comes a moment when you feel it, that deep, unsettling peace after the storm. The calls stop, the chaos fades, and a strange silence takes its place. That's not loneliness. That's divine intervention. That's God clearing space for your healing. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you finally care about yourself the way God wanted you to. It means you stop trying to resurrect what He buried for your protection. Because every time you reopen a door He closed, you invite the same pain that once broke you. Sometimes rejection is God's mercy in disguise. You thought they abandoned you, but really, God hid you. He removed you from their reach because their darkness was beginning to drain your light. You were starting to forget who you were, the laughter, the joy, the peace that once defined you. That's when God steps in, quietly but firmly, saying, "Enough. My child, I need you to let go." And when He says that, it's not to punish, it's to preserve your purpose. The chosen ones carry divine assignments that require clarity, not confusion. You can't fulfill your calling while being chained to chaos. In time, you'll see it clearly. The detachment wasn't a loss, it was a lesson. A lesson in spiritual boundaries, in trusting divine redirection, and in understanding that love doesn't always mean staying. It sometimes means walking away before you lose yourself. The one who once drained your spirit will fade into memory, and you'll rise lighter, freer, and closer to God than ever before. Because now you finally understand His protection will sometimes look like heartbreak, but it always leads to peace. There comes a time when your heart has to make a decision your emotions don't agree with. You've tried love, forgiveness, patience, and still nothing changed. That's because you were fighting a spiritual battle with human tools. You thought you could heal them with compassion, that your kindness could awaken their conscience. But empathy doesn't cure evil. You can't cast out demons with love, you cast them out with boundaries, prayer, and obedience. Narcissists are not simply wounded souls. Many are vessels for darker energy, designed to drain your spirit and disconnect you from God's voice. Every time you compromise your peace to understand them, you give permission to chaos. It's not about hate, it's about holy discernment. Breaking the cycle begins when you stop negotiating with evil. The enemy loves confusion because confusion keeps you tied to what hurts you. You tell yourself, maybe if I just love harder. But that thought is the trap. The devil disguises manipulation as compassion and self-sacrifice as virtue. Yet God never asked you to destroy yourself trying to prove your goodness. He called you to stand in truth, not drown in toxicity. Every time you ignore the unease in your spirit, that quiet whisper saying something is wrong, you silence the divine warning that's meant to protect you. The chosen ones often learn this lesson the hard way. Because your heart is pure, you believe everyone has good in them. You assume they just need time, guidance, or prayer. But not everyone wants to be healed. Some only want to be fed. They crave your energy, your light, your mercy. And when they've drained you, they move on as if you never existed. That's not love. That's spiritual warfare. The narcissist's charm was never real affection. It was bait. Their sudden warmth, their apologies, their promises to change, all illusions crafted to keep you stuck in the same emotional loop. Breaking the cycle means seeing manipulation for what it truly is, a test of your spiritual maturity. God will allow certain people to cross your path, not to bless you, but to build you. To teach you how to separate emotion from discernment, love from attachment, and compassion from captivity. The pain you felt wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You needed to feel how deception operates so you could never fall for it again. You needed to learn that spiritual authority doesn't come from pleasing people. It comes from obeying God, even when it breaks your heart. When you finally set boundaries, the storm will come. The narcissist will panic, accuse, and twist your truth. They'll say you've changed, that you've become cold or selfish. But don't let their words shake you. What they call selfishness, heaven calls obedience. You're not rejecting them, you're rejecting the darkness that controls them. You're refusing to let the same spirit that once drained you keep its hold. And that's exactly what evil fears, a soul that knows its authority. Prayer becomes your weapon. Silence becomes your armor. Boundaries become your protection. You stop explaining yourself and start listening to God. Every time you pray for strength instead of validation, you weaken the enemy's grip. Every time you choose peace over drama, you remind darkness that it no longer lives rent-free in your mind. Breaking the cycle is not about fighting harder. It's about walking away with divine confidence. You no longer chase closure, because closure was never theirs to give. You already received it when you chose yourself in God's light. And here's the truth most don't want to hear. Not every reconciliation is divine. Sometimes the enemy sends people back, hoping you'll reopen the door God closed. They come back sounding remorseful, quoting scripture, promising to change, but you must test the spirit, not the words. If peace doesn't follow them, they don't come from God. If your soul feels restless around them, that's your answer. God's people bring calm, the enemy's messengers bring confusion. Stop mistaking familiarity for destiny. Some people were only meant to be lessons, not lifelong companions. The chosen ones are meant to love deeply, but also wisely. God didn't make you soft so you could be exploited. He made you sensitive so you could sense what others can't. That's your gift, not your weakness. Breaking the cycle means using that gift the way heaven intended, not to heal evil, but to identify it. The moment you stop negotiating with manipulation, the spiritual fog begins to lift. You start seeing things clearly, who's aligned with God and who's aligned with destruction. That's when you finally reclaim your power. Understand this. Your empathy was never wasted. It was evidence of your purity. But purity without discernment becomes an open door for darkness. Now your heart carries both, compassion and wisdom. You can pray for someone's soul without letting them back into your life. You can forgive without reconnection. You can release without resentment. That is divine maturity, the mark of a true chosen one. So when God says no more, don't argue, don't explain, just walk. Because the moment you obey, the spiritual atmosphere shifts. Heaven celebrates, hell trembles, and your destiny begins to unfold again. That's what breaking the cycle truly means. Stepping out of emotional bondage and stepping into divine order. You don't have to fix them, prove yourself, or keep suffering in silence. The battle ends the day you decide your peace is sacred and your spirit belongs to God, not to the war they created. Breaking the cycle is the final act of spiritual authority. Not revenge, not fear, but surrender to God's higher plan. Because when you finally let go of what was draining you, heaven releases what's meant to heal you. And that's when you'll see, walking away wasn't losing the battle, it was winning the war.
There comes a moment when you've done all you can. You've cried, prayed, explained, forgiven, and tried to keep peace with someone who only thrives on chaos. You've exhausted yourself trying to make them see the truth, to see you, but they never do, because their heart was never meant to understand yours. That's when heaven takes notice. When your strength runs out and you fall to your knees saying, God, I can't fight this anymore, that's when everything begins to shift. Because it's no longer your battle. It becomes His. When God steps in, the rules change. What once felt unfair starts to make sense. What once broke you becomes the very thing that builds you. You see, narcissists and those under dark influence feed off control. They want to feel like they're winning, like they can shape your emotions at will. But the moment you surrender that power to God, their entire plan collapses. You're no longer reacting to their attacks because your spirit isn't anchored in their approval anymore. You've handed the situation over to divine justice, and trust me, God's justice doesn't miss. He doesn't need your anger, your revenge, or your explanations. He needs your surrender, because when you step back, He steps forward. And when God fights for you, the same energy they use to destroy you becomes the very fire that consumes their false foundation. At first, it might look like nothing's happening. They may still talk about you, mock you, or pretend to win. But behind the scenes, spiritual law is already working. Every seed of deception they planted begins to bear bitter fruit in their own life. Every lie they spoke returns to them multiplied. That's not karma, that's divine order. God is patient, but He's precise. He allows them enough rope to reveal themselves completely before His justice unfolds. When He moves, it's never loud, but it's undeniable. The same people who tried to humiliate you will one day wonder how you're still standing, radiant, peaceful, untouched, while their world quietly falls apart. When God steps in, He doesn't just remove the narcissist. He also repairs what they broke in you. He restores your clarity, your self-worth, and your peace. You stop replaying the past because you finally understand it wasn't random, it was training. You were learning to distinguish manipulation from love, pride from power, charm from character. God used that experience to refine your discernment, to make sure that when He elevates you,
You'll never again be fooled by a counterfeit. That's why some storms don't pass until you stop fighting in your own strength. The moment you surrender, heaven begins its quiet reconstruction. And make no mistake, God's justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about exposure. He allows the truth to rise naturally, piece by piece, until everyone sees what you tried to explain in vain. The narcissist's own actions reveal their nature. The lies unravel. The mask collapses under the weight of its own deception. And all you have to do is stay still, stay silent, and stay obedient. The less you respond, the louder God speaks. You'll feel it, that calm after chaos, the kind that doesn't come from logic, but from grace. The heaviness lifts, the anxiety fades, and in its place comes peace. The kind of peace that confuses those who once had power over you. That's when you realize you didn't need to win the argument. God was writing the verdict. You didn't need to expose them. The truth exposed itself. The same manipulation they use to control others begins to turn inward, creating confusion, guilt, and emptiness in their own life. Because spiritual law is simple. Whatever energy you send out returns home eventually. When God steps in, your only job is to stay aligned. Keep your heart clean, your prayers sincere, and your faith firm. Don't watch their downfall with pride. Watch it with understanding. Because you now see how real spiritual protection is. You see how the hand of God defends those who walk in truth. You realize He was never silent. He was strategic. Every delay was divine timing. Every tear was an investment in your transformation. You weren't losing, you were being repositioned. So if you're standing at that breaking point now, tired, hurt, unsure of what to do, stop fighting in circles. Just surrender. Tell God, I trust you with what I can't fix. And then let Him move. Because when He does, everything hidden will be revealed. Every weapon formed against you will collapse, and every lie will turn into your testimony. When God steps in, the war ends not because your enemy changed, but because you did. You rose above it. You stopped feeding the fire and started walking in faith. And once that happens, no force of darkness can touch you. You're protected, elevated, and restored because you finally let the greatest warrior fight for you.
Peace. That's the first sign that the war is over. Not the kind of peace that comes from silence or pretending everything is fine, but the deep, sacred calm that comes after surviving something meant to destroy you. It's the quiet confirmation that God's hand has truly moved in your life. Once you obey and detach, something powerful begins to happen. Your glow returns. It's not the same light you had before. It's purer, stronger, and wiser. You've been through fire, and yet you shine brighter. That's the divine reward of a chosen one who learned to walk away in faith instead of fear. Freedom follows soon after. Not just physical freedom, but emotional and spiritual liberation. You no longer wake up heavy or anxious. The thoughts that once tormented you fade into the background like old echoes that no longer hold meaning. You stop checking your phone for messages that won't come. You stop replaying conversations trying to make sense of madness. Your soul finally exhales. That's when you realize the chains weren't physical, they were energetic. Every tear, every moment of doubt, every time you ignored your intuition, those were the ties that kept you bound. And now, by obeying God's call to detach, those invisible ropes begin to break. One by one, your spirit steps back into its rightful place, free, radiant, untouchable. Then comes clarity. The fog lifts, and you start to see things you couldn't before. You see how much energy you wasted trying to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. You see how manipulation was disguised as love, how guilt was used as control, how chaos was crafted to keep you small. But you also see your own strength. You see how God used the pain to reveal your power. The person who once walked in confusion now walks in conviction. You no longer question your worth because your peace itself becomes proof of your growth. That's what divine clarity feels like. Calm, firm, unshakable. And yes, even the narcissist feels it. They may not understand it, but they sense the shift, that divine distance that terrifies them. Your silence now echoes louder than your words ever did. The energy they once drained from you no longer flows toward them. It's like a spiritual wall has been raised, built by your obedience and guarded by heaven itself. They'll try to pull you back, through guilt, through nostalgia, through sudden bursts of regret. But their reach no longer touches you because you're no longer vibrating on the same frequency. You've ascended to a place where manipulation can't breathe. You've become what the enemy feared most, healed, detached, and at peace. That's the true reward of the chosen one, not revenge, not recognition, but restoration. The kind of restoration that makes you grateful for everything that once broke you. You begin to thank God not just for what He gave, but for what He took away. Because now you understand every separation was protection, every delay was direction, every heartbreak was redirection. You realize He didn't let them hurt you to destroy you. He let them expose themselves to free you. Your glow now carries divine authority. People can feel it when you enter a room. There's something sacred about you, calm but powerful, gentle but firm. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't explain. You simply exist in alignment, and that alone speaks volumes. The same ones who once doubted you will begin to wonder how you healed so gracefully. But they won't understand that your glow isn't from the world, it's from God. It's the light of someone who chose peace over ego, purpose over pain, and faith over fear. You'll notice blessings start to flow again, effortlessly. Doors open without struggle, opportunities find you, people who match your energy begin to appear, as if heaven was just waiting for you to let go of what was blocking the flow. That's divine reciprocity, God rewarding your obedience with restoration. The peace you feel now is not temporary, it's sacred evidence that you've stepped into a new chapter. The narcissist may still talk, still perform, still pretend, but deep down they feel the loss of your energy. They feel the absence of your light, and it unsettles them, because no imitation can replace what was divine. Your detachment is their defeat, not because you wish them harm, but because your healing revealed what they truly were. And that realization haunts them more than any punishment ever could. So walk in that peace, chosen one. That's your reward. The storm didn't destroy you, it purified you. Your glow isn't just beauty, it's evidence of survival, proof of God's favor, and a reminder to the universe that no darkness can outshine divine light. You didn't just survive the war, you transcended it. And now, your peace is your victory.
There comes a point in every chosen one's journey when the truth finally sinks in. A truth so clear, it feels like the fog of your entire life suddenly lifts. You realize you were never meant to heal the narcissist. You were meant to see them. That's it. That's the final revelation. All the pain, confusion, and heartbreak weren't punishments. They were lessons in spiritual vision. The devil sent them to drain you, but God used the very same experience to awaken you. And that awakening, that's not defeat. That's divine promotion. You see, narcissists are masters of illusion. They study your kindness, your empathy, your hope, and they use those gifts as doorways into your life. They come dressed as answers to your prayers. But over time, you start to notice the cracks.
Their words sound holy, but their actions are hollow. Their apologies feel deep, but their patterns never change. Still, your heart wants to believe, because that's what chosen ones do. They love with faith. You thought your love could heal them, but God never asked you to heal what refuses to change. You were sent to witness what deception looks like up close, so that you'd never fall for it again. Every time they lied, every time they twisted the truth, every time they made you question your worth, that was your training ground. God was refining your discernment through the fire of betrayal. He wasn't punishing you, He was promoting you. You can't teach discernment from a book. You have to feel what false light looks like, what counterfeit love sounds like, what spiritual manipulation feels like. Because once you've seen it, you can never be fooled by it again. That's the kind of wisdom only experience can build, and it's sacred. So when you look back, don't see a wasted chapter. See the awakening. Because before that encounter, your empathy was pure but unguarded. You gave without measure, trusted without testing, and loved without boundaries. But now you love with awareness. You can feel energy before words are spoken. You can sense intention before it's revealed. What used to confuse you now stands out like a flashing warning sign. You've developed spiritual sight, the kind that can tell light from imitation, truth from flattery, divine connection from demonic assignment. And yes, the devil sent them. That's the part many people miss. Darkness doesn't always come with horns. Sometimes it comes disguised as your soulmate, your friend, your family member, or your mentor. It comes to distract you, to make you question yourself, to make you forget who you are in God. Narcissists are spiritual parasites, feeding on your compassion, thriving on your confusion, and surviving on your reactions. They were never in your life to love you. They were sent to test you, to see if you would abandon your identity for their approval, to see if you would doubt God's voice for theirs. But here's the miracle. What the devil sent to drain you, God turned into your awakening. You didn't just survive, you transformed. Every time they tried to break you, your spirit learned to bend without shattering. Every betrayal pushed you closer to divine truth. Every false promise taught you how to listen beyond words. God allowed the storm not to destroy you, but to reveal you, to strip away illusion until only truth remained. That's not loss. That's elevation. That's divine promotion in its purest form. When the final revelation comes, it's quiet. There's no dramatic ending, no revenge, no closure from them. Just peace. Deep, holy peace. You no longer crave their apology because you understand that closure isn't given, it's chosen. You no longer question why they couldn't love you because you finally see they were incapable of love. You no longer replay what happened because the lesson has already been absorbed. The moment you see the pattern for what it was, a spiritual trap designed to test your discernment, you break free from the cycle forever. And that's when your glow returns, but it's different now. It's not the naive light of someone hoping to be seen. It's the steady flame of someone who sees clearly. You carry wisdom in your walk, peace in your voice, and authority in your presence. The very energy they tried to dim now radiates stronger than ever. Even they can feel it. That divine distance, that spiritual firewall, it terrifies them, because the light they once fed on now repels them. Your detachment is their defeat, not because you fought them, but because you evolved beyond them. This is what divine promotion looks like. Not applause, not revenge, but revelation. God trusted you with pain because He knew you'd turn it into purpose. He knew that your heart, though wounded, would not grow bitter. He knew that when the mask fell, you would see not only who they were, but who you are, chosen, protected, and destined for more. That's why when the dust settles, you don't rise angry, you rise wise. You don't seek revenge, you seek peace. You don't return to prove your strength, your peace is your proof. The final revelation is freedom. Freedom from illusions, from emotional bondage, from spiritual blindness. You finally understand that your role was never to change them, but to recognize them. Once you see evil clearly, it loses power over you. Once you know who you are in God, manipulation can no longer touch you. That's why they lost. Not because you cursed them, but because you outgrew them. The same tricks that once worked now look childish. The same flattery that once melted you now sounds hollow. You've risen to a level where light no longer argues with darkness. It simply shines, and darkness disappears. So when you think of what you went through, don't see failure. See graduation. You passed one of the hardest spiritual tests there is. Loving deeply without losing yourself, forgiving without reopening the door, and walking away with grace when everything in you wanted to stay. You didn't fail your mission. You fulfilled it. The devil tried to use the narcissist to silence your light, but all it did was polish your soul until you could reflect God's glory even brighter. That's the final revelation. You were never losing. You were leveling up. The narcissist wasn't your punishment. They were your initiation into spiritual power. And now you walk differently. You trust differently. You pray differently. Because you see. And that sight, that divine awareness, is the ultimate victory. You've become untouchable, unshakable, and unstoppable. Not because you fought harder, but because you finally understood. The battle was never about them. It was always about awakening you.